Alright then, everything seems like it's working today. Let's hope it does. Hello everybody! Welcome to Discussing Tabletop. So far, nothing is set on fire.
Yet.
I say that. Ah no, burst of flames! I mean, like, the amount of, like, weird technical difficulties I oftentimes face is just, like... It's just life. I think at this point.
I mean, that's just the nature of streaming. You constantly have to be aware of all the mistakes that might happen.
Gotta keep the head on the swivel and keep an eye on it. So, of course, welcome. It is June 14th. We're just getting that midpoint in June. Just kind of trucking along throughout the month. Almost halfway done the year.
Trucking, both work.
True. How's your day overall been? Would you call this a great day?
It was fun. The combat, with just a bunch of combat, which is kind of fun. Well, my character didn't do a ton in the latter half of the first combat. I did help out a bit in the second combat, though.
You'll have to give us more in-depth stories then.
Yep.
Myself, it's been a pretty normal Saturday. Lots of little running around, lots of little stuff to do, but it felt like it at least worked out decent. So
yeah, let me give you a little preview of how that went. There we go.
Yes, the age-old. I understand this. Anyway, why don't we dive into our news topics then, and we can get that done with, and we can chat a little bit more as we go too. If there's some, it's a pretty decent week of some topics. I guess we'll start with our little grab bag that I kind of define this as of some Magic and D&D adjacent products. I called it that because they're kind of like just extra stuff for both of them. First off, from the Magic side of things, is expensive statues, which are probably really awesome, but also incredibly expensive. And continues to say, the fact is... Okay. The fact is, it's two statues of their two major Planeswalker characters, which are big characters within it. And they are 1/4 scale porcelain statues of Lana and Chandra. Lana one is going to be 1,799. The Chandra one, 1,499. Expensive. Very expensive. Apparently, these were originally slated for 2021, but only coming out now. So...
That doesn't surprise me, given both the state of the world in 2021 and the state of Hasbro in 2021.
True. It's this weird thing of, like, Hasbro, in their storyline, took a step back from Planeswalkers, but everybody still likes the Planeswalkers. And these characters, too. It's like they can't win on their other side characters, even though they continue to pretend like that's going to work. And they kind of try to establish these, like, you know, it's the problems with their entire storyline. It's a mess right now. I'm just saying. Magic basically shot themselves in the foot, story-wise, line, and it's just been a mess.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, Magic hasn't released any, like, actual, like, official, like, updates to their story outside of cards in, like, you know, what, like 5 years longer?
Yeah. It's been a while since they've really done a good, like, actual story thing beyond the cards. And even in the cards, they tend to tell some stories. It's just that, like, they've either been, like, just... this is the set, but also, like, why is this the set? Like, you know, I think we talked about, like, the things with hats. It's just, like, there's a story going on there. It's just hard to understand with everybody's in a hat, you know? It feels like, you know, there's no reason for the story in this one. Anyway, small weird complaints along the Magic side of things. It looks neat.
Wait.
It's outside my price range.
Wait, what? There are stories.
Usually on the website they have, like, little, like, excerpts on the Magic website. They'll have, like, articles that'll tell, like, the basic story.
Yeah, because I'm looking at their website and it's like, oh, Dragonstorm, you've got episode 1, episode 2, episode 3,
yeah.
episode 4.
I forgot about those.
Yeah.
Because that's really... We don't have the novels, and I think we don't have... They used to have inserts in the fat packs. I can't remember what the other term for them are. The bundles. There used to be like booklet inserts that included like 6 or 7 pages of actual like basic storyline of what was going on, and then a bunch of card images that would help for like collecting all the cards. They got rid of those, so we don't have a card checklist anymore. And that was a great way of having the basic story, and then they'd expand upon it with novels or the website or something like that. And, you know, then you could kind of understand where things are going on with the cards, too. They used to, like, be... Yeah, okay. You can still go to the website, but it feels like sometimes I'm messed when trying to, like, look for that stuff as much as they used to. Even though there is a story going on.
It's pretty well organized, in my opinion.
I mean, on the website, I think.
Yeah. This is a freaking long... This is, like... This could be like a whole book chapter.
Some of them are pretty long. Not all of them, I'll tell you. Because I don't read as much anymore, but for a while when I was reading them, there were some of the storylines that were pretty short. Others, they do a very good job. I feel because Takir is has been in the past a popular plane. Again, like, it's hard to probably tell now because Final Fantasy overshadowed it completely. Yeah. It has a very deep story that it told back in the original block of cards, and so I assume that they would want to follow up on what was going on in their story there, too.
I mean, I'm just looking at the different thing. Like, I mean, literally I've just gone through and looked at, like, the first one for each category, and it's like, they're all long.
They might be longer nowadays than they were for a while.
Yeah, so they might have stepped that up at some point.
Again, they were pretty good for a while. They kind of went down. If they've gone back up in quality, I'm thumbs up for that. You know, it's just been, you know, I think it's the fact that like a lot of like the basic storylines, like if you just like sum her up in a paragraph, have been a mixed bag nowadays. Like Murs of Karlov Manor, a detective story set in Ravnica, with major players from the guilds that doesn't involve the guilds. That involves detectives instead of, like, what everybody loves about Ravnica. I mean, that's not the way they would summarize it, but that's what it ended up being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some other side products that we have. These, there's 2 D&D related ones. We have a graphic novel coming, apparently. I don't know how good or bad it's going to be, but it's a Fool's Gold Death by Karaoke. Okay. Okay, so it's based on someone's adventures. I don't know these people. The Dingo Doodles. They made 100,000 subscribers, so they're probably big. They got a big campaign, I assume. Or maybe they do other stuff and they also.
Let's see. Graphic novels YouTubers Jenna. Felix. Christopher Hastings. I feel like I've heard these names somewhere. Hold on.
You're gonna look it up? That's great.
Yeah. Fool's Gold! Oh, it's Fool's Gold! Oh! My brain finally clicked. Yeah, I actually was listening to a more recent one a while back. I stopped, but like, yeah, okay, I've actually heard these people. It's so basically it's a person, it's a GM and 2 players.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Death by Karaoke, I don't remember. I was listening to like Fool's Gold Desert one. Yeah. My brain, it took for my brain clicked Fool's Gold. I'm like, wait, I've heard these names before.
Yeah, it's a thing that like it's certainly an interesting thing, and we saw like success with the I believe probably success with the Critical Role based stuff. That's always told their stories, but it's like one of those things like I don't mind there's a market for it, but I was worried that it would be harder to get that market outside of something that was like a runaway success.
Well, I'm going to be honest, they play 3rd edition, so 3.3rd edition, so they don't play current.
Okay.
So it's not like it's their current thing is no, it's just using D&D, their own kind of world also. So
I guess that's another thing is like when you tell a story, the story itself can be good enough, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is this by? It's based on. I don't think this is even by Hasbro.
No.
Yeah, it's just these people, and that's the thing. I know one.
It's based on
like
a D&D
one
campaign,
them,
so
yeah,
like,
and one of them's and I know one of them's an artist, so I wouldn't be surprised if she started to like do this.
Okay, that's why it's kind of adjacent products because it's kind of like it's D&D related and stuff too.
Yep. It's just Dark Horse is just going to be the publisher, so yeah. So I'm pretty sure it's Jenna who's the artist. Oh well, Jenna Dingo Doodles, which makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, interesting. I definitely want to listen to more of their stuff. I just didn't. So
yeah. So and the last thing in this little grab bag is, of course, I saw a clip of this from the various announcement things from the past, like, week, 2 weeks, you know, that happened of all the video game announcements. And the Neverwinter Nights 2 is now getting an enhanced edition. So this is, of course, the more... I don't know if this one's still 3.0, 3.5 based. Because I remember Neverwinter Nights 1, which got the enhanced edition and came to Steam, is based on like 3.0, 3.5. I don't know what Neverwinter Nights 2 is based on, off the top of my head. But it's coming to Steam now. So it is a classic. I kind of call it classic. Yeah, probably classic. It's been long enough that, yeah. Oh, the PC Gaming Show showed it. I saw someone talking about it. Oh, it's released tomorrow on Steam. Oh no, tomorrow in a month, July 15th.
Neverwinter Nights 2 based on Dungeons and Dragons 3.5.
Okay, because I think first one was 3.0, this one's 3.5. Yeah. It's got all the expansion packs, just like Neverwinter Nights 1 would have. I guess it was on Steam for a while, but it disappeared from the storefront in 2013. And that, like, because I guess this is probably the same team that did Neverwinter Nights 1, I assume, and brought that back up to the Steam page.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Again, I like Neverwinter Nights 1. I never played 2. I assume it's probably the same. It's very, like, classic CRPG. So, definitely, if you are a fan of those games and fan of some classic D&D stuff, I guess I'd say if you can put up with the stuff from like the 80s, 90s, you certainly could put up with this one. It's a lot better than those for old D&D video games. Classics. Quotation mark there. I just definitely wanted to say hey, check it out if you're okay.
So I guess the reason it got taken off, it's unclear, so no one knows the exact reason as far as I can tell from my quick looking. But the reason it was taken off Steam is because the IP of Neverwinter Nights was sold, still kind of owned by Wizards, but then the new group decided they didn't want it on Steam for some reason.
I assume that it was like Wizards still owns D&D, but the people that controlled the video game IP side of things, because we've gotten more Neverwinter Nights related stuff post there. That's why. Nights series. So was there? There's 2 video games. And there was an online game too. Oh, there's an online game in 2013.
Yeah, there was Neverwinter Nights the online one.
Might have been.
Neverwinter Nights 2, I thought had like online stuff.
There's a Neverwinter game, which I guess is the kind of like online sequel to. There was a Neverwinter Nights online game in '91 that's unrelated, and then the 2013.
Oh yeah, okay. The online one is just called Neverwinter.
Yeah. It might be because it's kind of like, would that have been the same company that bought up Neverwinter Nights 2, but 2 and moved between people? I don't know. It's a mess there.
So it had something to do with Atari. Like Atari had the original rights, and then I think it got, and then they went underground, and the other people came back, but then Beamdog got a hold of it, and then now they're bringing it back.
Yeah, because Atari was the original publisher. I forgot Atari was the publisher. This is 2002. This is ancient. Man. So. Yeah, it's
Oh, okay.
Let's be back at least.
I see. So Atari like originally had like Neverwinter Nights, but when they went bankrupt, Neverwinter Nights license went back to Wizards of the Coast by default. And Wizards of the Coast didn't want to bother dealing with like releasing it anywhere, so it just got taken off of Steam.
That makes sense. They just didn't really care at that point in time. They're like, oh, cool, we have it, great. Just shelf it. It's an old game. Because again, it's that kind of same thing that like we've seen nowadays in the last like probably 5-10 years. So many of those like the gold box games, the old gold box D&D games that pop up on like GOG, and a lot of those older classic D&D related games that they just disappeared. Like again, they weren't on Steam really. But these were games that just had disappeared from the zeitgeist, and certainly speaking, like, it probably just wasn't worth it to have it on Steam, once they got it and stuff like that. Everything was just changing.
Because I think publishers do have to pay a little bit to have their stuff on Steam, and they were probably just like, nah.
I'm curious as to probably when the original Neverwinter Nights went off of Steam. It came back more recently. That's just have to be like stuff back more recently. Anyway, so yeah, there's just a little side thing of Neverwinter Nights 2. If you're interested. Okay.
Hey. So to put it does cost something to put your games on Steam, but it's a one-time $100 fee.
Yeah. So it probably was just, managing it after that. They just probably didn't really manage it and stuff. I assume is what it is. Because you're kind of like in charge of that anyway then. So if anything issues or something comes with that, and maybe like allowing, because it's on Steam, people could workshop stuff a lot easier and stuff like that. And continue with the mix. They may not want that. So, Free RPG Day is coming, June 21st. And one of the big people that we know about is going to be Paizo. It's going to be providing 2 free adventures. A Starfinder 2nd Edition adventure and a Pathfinder 2nd Edition adventure. The Starfinder one is going to be Battle for Nova Rush, and the Pathfinder one is going to be the Scourge of Sheerleaf. The Starfinder one is you're taking on some iconic heroes from Starfinder. And what are you doing here? Sorry. Battle space pilots for control of Nova Rush. And so, yeah. Cool. And then the Scourge of Sheerleaf is you're in the, village of Sheerleaf, and a dragon is demanding subservience of the village, and you're basically standing up to the dragon. You're like, hey now, stop trying to, murder everybody here. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Oh, you're all dragon blood characters is the idea.
Oh yeah, you're like, hey now.
Pre-made characters.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I guess that's why you can like kind of stand up and be like, "Hey, man, look, man, buddy, you know, we got some of the same blood in us. You know, don't oppress these people. Come on, we can be good friends. You know, free RPG day. It's a kind of fun time. If you want to check out some like small little adventures here and there, test them out at various stores and things like that. And I feel like plenty of people do a lot of great things. I'm happy to see, you know, Paizo participating, because they always love to run adventure for those stuff. And you usually can get them eventually, either just a PDF for free later on, or they do eventually kind of sell printed versions if you want to just get a physical version too. Yes, it's not free then, but no, it involves printing at that point in time. If you don't want to pay any money, you can just get the goddamn PDF for free.
Yeah.
But you will be able to get them in the future. So.
Yeah. I'm apparently, I don't know, I just was reading some of the stuff down below. Apparently they have in the file name, Shearleaf is spelled Shear, and then it's Shearleaf everywhere else. So there's a typo in the file name. Just a random funny thing.
Oh, that is good series. So, silly. I said silly. So, make sure to check those out. Next
the free RPG pay is literally next week. So
yes, I keep forgetting the date. Oh wait,
21st.
21st.
Yep.
Yes, next week. All right. So we have a game that's now going to be under Modiphius, which is Hardwar, and they have provided a quick play of it. So this is a tactical miniatures mecha game, and I mean, Modiphius does a lot of tactical miniature stuff, so I'm not going to, berate them for doing another one. But apparently the game had been around for a bit, kind of fell apart, and they are now basically taking over for it. They are providing the basic quick play or basic rules of the miniatures game, and they're going to be having a Kickstarter. They acquired it from the, original people that had it in 2024. So, yeah.
Modiphius really does just like to they really do like to play Pokemon with RPGs.
RPGs and miniatures games and all this kind of stuff. They're very big people on that. They're like, hey, you need a publisher? Cool. Hey, that thing's good on? We'll do something with it. Honestly, it's an interesting business model, but it tends to work for them. I guess it's the entire thing of, like, acting as making their own stuff, getting up things, but also then acting as a publisher can help a lot, because,
Yep.
we see how it works for Steam and Valve. Valve just sits there and people put stuff on their platform and they earn money for their, like, thank you.
Also, for the next 16 days, there's a sale on Modiphius for physical products.
Ooh.
Yeah, because basically they're moving their warehouse and they're trying to sell stuff.
I see that at the top there. So again, like it's a good chance that if you do want some of these physical books, that you can always get them. As I said, I love a good PDF, but I also do love a good physical book. I'm not gonna lie. So,
yep.
But if you are interested in Hardwar, either you played it before or you want to look into a new miniatures game, this might be an opportunity to check it out. At least to see if it interests you. The quick play rules before the full Kickstarter comes out next month from Modiphius. So, maybe you're interested in it. Maybe you want to support it then and get into a new miniatures game. Cool. So, we talked about this before, but I wanted to step on it again because we do have some more details in it, and we have the Call of Cthulhu Japanese adventure, which is basically like the King in Yellow in 1980s Japan. We talked about that they had announced this before, but we do have a little bit more details about what kind of is in the book and how it works and stuff like that. So, I almost forgot about that. I looked on those dates. So this is the Sutra of Pale Leaves. I guess is the Twin Suns Rising was the name. It's a hell of a name.
Oh yeah, we talked about this I think when it was on Kickstarter.
Yes. So we had some basic ideas about it then, but again, like, this is the full release. We do have a good idea that, you know, it's supposed to be, you know, the King of Yellow as a character, as a kind of shifting being that, you know, it is. And his guys, the Prince of Pale Leaves here. They have 3 scenarios. I think I talked about it then. It's very reminiscent of the game that had come out a couple years ago now at this point in time, The World of Horror, which was that kind of Cthulhu-esque Japanese horror game that has a very, honestly, very 1980s feel. So, or at least not 2000, the 90s feel or something, you know, not 1980s. So it does have like an older feel to it. But it's a, you know, it's a video game and very different than the stories here. But it's very interesting to see that, you know, it kind of feels interestingly matching vibes. So, not gonna lie, I mean, the purple book and special book looks really cool too.
Yeah.
If you would have spent the leather version for $90.
Okay, no, never mind. I misread that. I was about to comment on like, that doesn't sound very Cthulian, but then I'm like, okay, never mind. I misread that. It says those who cry out in their minds and soul, those who cry out to him lose their minds and souls, but it will be far worse for the rest of us. I thought it says like, cry out to like stop their losing their minds and souls.
Oh no! The King in Yellow shows up to be like, oh no! I'll help you out. You'll be awful after you've been helped out by me, but better off than everybody else.
Yeah. Everyone else will just be gone and wiped from existence. You'll still exist in my domain.
With madness and, you know, horrible like corruption to your soul and mind, but, you know, you're better off. I helped! Thumbs up! I helped! God. I do like it's the idea of the helpful Cthulhu in horror. So yes, it is out now. If you're interested in it, whether you want to get the special version, printed version, or check it out. Alright. So, Bag O Holding. We have one for Fantasy Age 2nd Edition. There we go. There's a link to it. So, it's of course a collection of books for $20. And this is of course Fantasy Age 2nd Edition, which came out in 2023, so it's pretty new. And for $20 you get, of course, the horrible books, the Fantasy Age Techno Fantasy, and 3 adventures. So it's a simple little like thing. You get the 2nd edition Game Master's Toolkits, the VTT Token Pack, Quick Start. The 3 adventures are Lair of the Horned Giant, Menace of the Grave Warrens, and Return to the Valley of Whispering Titan. Okay, this is one of the Age system books. So again, it's Age from Green Ronin Press, which if you know the Age system, you can like most of them, and I think there's a little bit of mix and matching between them. But this is their fantasy version of stuff, so it introduces probably like magic system, magic items, all those things that would be unique to it. In comparison, and I assume most of the Age books, if you have the core book, you can play that on its own without any of the other ones, you know. But again, it's kind of like, you know, when we talk about 2D20 systems or D20 systems, there, you know, some compatibility between them that exists.
Yeah. Okay. This does seem to be. This sale is limited to their website. I'm checking Roll20 or Drive-Thru RPG, not Roll20. Drive-Thru RPG. They don't seem to have the same thing. So.
Gotcha.
I usually like it when it's on. I usually like to keep all my books in like one place if possible. So.
Okay, cool.
So that's why I'm like, maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
It's annoying to have to like go to like your mail, find out what company it was, and then find their download link, find the.
So again, if you want to dive into some of the Age system, the adventure game engine, certainly speaking, it is one of the ones I've read up a little bit on. It seems interesting, but I have yet to test it. So I'll say that, seems like an interesting system. I haven't tested it. One on the list of possible tests at some point in time. But again, if you want to try the fantasy one out, which again, most people nowadays play a lot of fantasy, aka D&D. So diving into a different fantasy probably isn't a terrible thing. But this might be worth it to check out. And for $20, getting 7 titles is pretty good. Not gonna lie. So if you want to check it out, it's a good chance to. Bundle Holding is available for 16 more days. I didn't switch over. So,
yep.
Come On Games continues to disappear from existence, unfortunately. I feel like it's one of those companies that wasn't doing... I feel like what was going on was Come On was probably not in great shape before everything happened this year, and just the tariffs were the death of it, I'm assuming at this point in time.
Even just the expectation of the tariffs.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna let you know, in most cases, the tariffs haven't really happened yet. They keep getting pushed back.
Up and down, pushed back. There's constant issues with them, and it's a complete mess.
I think they are in place for China, but like all the other countries that they listed, I think
the blanket 10% that was there was in effect too. There's just a blanket 10% of these things.
That was like, so from what I was reading, the blanket 10% was kind of already there.
It
was just like,
I don't know. It's a mess. It's a mess, regardless. Anyway, so Come On basically laid a bunch of people off, kind of shut down a lot of their stuff, retracted stuff, and they've been selling off their IPs. We talked about how Tabletop Tycoon bought up a lot of them, but now Asmodee has basically gone and bought up Zombicide, which was their big hit that Come On had. Which makes me worry even more about them, since I thought, when I heard about Tabletop Tycoon buying them up, I'm like, at least they have Zombicide still to them. No, they don't. Oof. So, yeah. It was their big game that kind of debuted in 2012. It had a second round of popularity with a lot of IPs and stuff, so it's been like a really big popular game that they've had for a zombie-based game. And yeah, it can be a very good win for Asmodee since it's a big tabletop IP. It's sort of like if you hear someone selling off, Settlers of Catan. Or there's probably a couple other ones that I'm not thinking off the top of my head, but that's the big one that I like. Be like, that's a pretty big IP to be selling off, in the tabletop world. Oh, Munchkin. Like if Munchkin was going to a different company than Steve Jackson Games, you're like, crap, wow, that's a big one to be selling off. In this case, yeah, I don't think it's quite as big as those Zombicide itself, but it is a big name that's out there. I think most of the time that I heard about a lot of the big zombie type board games. Zombicide was one of those top ones to talk about.
Yeah.
Respond to that for a second. Anyway, speaking like yes, quick response. So, yeah, I think we'll see Asmodee continue to try to solidify itself at this point in time. I think we've talked about it, how it's been doing that since its break from Embracer. And there's just another sign that it's doing its best to kind of solidify itself in the gaming sphere.
Okay.
It was an opportunity.
Doing a quick checkup, yeah, so as far as the tariffs go, there were some tariff blankets, as far as I'm aware. It's not super clear based on Wikipedia, but apparently, basically, the average tariff increased tenfold under Trump's current stuff, so.
Hey!
From about 2.5% to almost 25% average.
That's a lot of raise. And the thing is, again, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's been on and off a lot of stuff, and it seems like that uncertainty is not helping a lot. And it seems like, unfortunately, with just the uncertainty of it, it's ending up just being a lot of companies now. This is something we haven't hit upon, but again, like, this does relate to it. There's just plenty of articles about this where I've been seeing, like, you know, various tabletop companies being like, hey, yeah, we have to raise our prices.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, there's uncertainty whether they will be there or not be there, and they're just like, look, you can't deal with the uncertainty, we're just going to raise our prices.
Yep. Yeah.
If they go away,
also...
great, but if they don't, we're ready for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, apparently Trump started raising tariffs on China in his first presidency. Joe Biden actually continued to raise tariffs on Trump. So, or not Trump, on China. And then now we're sending it through the roof with...
The competition with China is one of those things that, like, you know, I half understand, but also, like, it is...
No, I actually do agree. Like, honestly, the Joe Biden's was over a period of Joe Biden's presidency term raised tariffs over a period of 3 years, which is, you know, that's reasonable. You know, gives people time to adjust.
Can adjust to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
you know,
rather than it's going to happen in a month, figure it out.
Anyway, so I hope Come On survives this, but the more I've seen about it, the more I feel like that company is going to go off. And it was kind of like that. Come On was one of those, like, I guess you could say, like, double A companies, like, in the tabletop sphere. Maybe single A, double A, you know. So it was like, it was
single A sounds, but yeah, maybe double A.
It was at least one of the bigger names. I felt like, you know. Again, there aren't huge names in the tabletop sphere. I'm going to tell you that there are a few. You know, you point at, like, you know, Wizards of the Coast. You point at your... at least nowadays, I point at, like, Modiphius, Steve Jackson Games. They tend to be the bigger ones. And there's some, like, ones after that. But Come On was, at least for, like, board game stuff, I felt like it was one of those names that was, you know, up there with some of the other, you know... There were some companies that were up. It was kind of matching. It was at least a bigger company. You know, they were a company. They were doing a lot of different topics, and it kind of feels sad for them to kind of die. A lot of the other people have been managing to adapt. They were, so it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll survive this. Maybe they won't. I don't know. Good luck.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently AAA, because that just came up, I just had to look it up quickly. Apparently it had to do with, like, something to do with, like, investing, from what I can do real quick. Like, AAA's, like, they like, get an A in 3 categories. That's why they're a AAA.
Yeah, I feel like that's what it originally was, and I feel like it still kind of exists. I've been using that because it's, like, the video game industry term people uses. But I feel like it's lost that meaning in the video game industry. It's the AAA, you know. It is the big publishers, you know, the big companies. And then you kind of go down to, like, the other A's that exist there in the video game industry. And I feel like there's I'm just using it as a parallel.
Okay,
even though it might match that.
That's okay. This is even weirder. Okay, so it's with credit agencies. Their credit worthiness. So they had scores of A among the 3 big credit rating agencies. Which is so weird. That's such an interesting... Like, why would that be? I mean, I guess if you're like... You know, they pay off their debts, so they're a good company? What?
I don't know why that went to the moniker with video games. Is it just those companies will like that? Is it because, like, of, like, older video game companies like Atari?
Okay, so the term was borrowed. The term was borrowed. So it wasn't actually directly intended. Like, so, okay. So basically, yeah, so... Yeah, AAA was basically companies that... So AAA companies were ones that basically were, you know, the best ones to, like, so it's kind of more of an invest or to, like, purchase from. Which is kind of funny because, nowadays, AAA basically means don't touch their stuff. They're probably just a bunch of microtransactions and scam. You know, it's just a bunch of microtransactions.
Yeah, the idea of AAA has been kind of like... I feel like it isn't necessary. It does have a bad connotation. All right then. It has bad connotations in in the video game sphere, for sure. But I think there's a concept behind it of like the AAA industry and the video game industry is just the big companies. It's the big people that grows a lot of things, and I think that's really where it should be. It's just the big companies have kind of become horrifically corrupt, and unfortunately, we kind of see that with the big AAA type companies in the tabletop world to a degree. I'm pointing at you, Wizards, which I feel like is the best example of a, in quotations, AAA in the tabletop industry. Mm-hmm. I feel like there are some close seconds, like Asmodee might become that, but because of all their restructuring and mess that they're in, I don't know if they'll become that. They do have a lot of like subdivisions under them, and they're a big publishing group, and there's a lot of games that they have their hands in. I would say that like something like Modiphius would be more like the AA level of things, that they're kind of like that medium thing, because they just do a lot more publishing and stuff too. But again, it's like this vague definition kind of thing that we kind of try to find out. It's interesting.
And generally, the way these are kind of considered is, or the way these are kind of assigned now, if on like a more semi-official term or semi-official basis, is based on the number of people working on the game. 400 to 600 persons is standard for like a AAA game. Whereas like 40 to what was it? I saw it somewhere. 50 to 100 is AA. And there isn't a single A for some reason. Yeah.
So that's
that I guess is considered indie.
Yeah, I feel like they just in games, you know, this point. Even though like I don't know, it's just a weird mess of things when it comes to these terminologies that we kind of like steal things from stuff. But this is just normally a lot of things. Terminologies come from somewhere, and whether or not they match the original. So, anyway, honestly speaking, interestingly enough, hey, Renegade Game Studios is still providing stuff for the G.I.Joe RPG. I think that's fine. I'm not the biggest G.I.Joe person, but it's kind of interesting that they are, and it's one of those things is that I hadn't heard a lot of updates on that one. Sorry, I'm getting like here. Like, we hear updates for, like, the Transformers occasionally, and for, like, the Power Rangers. The two other RPGs Renegade came out with, based on, like, is those Hasbro IPs? They are just Hasbro IPs, aren't they? I believe they're all in
there. Are G.I. Joe Hasbro?
Yes, G.I. Joe and Transformers are. I think the Power Rangers are too. I don't know. Look, you know, I'm not a bit. I'm medium. Right. Yeah, I'm medium when it comes to some of these things. Like, I remember watching both old Transformers episodes and old G.I. Joe episodes on reruns on like random channels. But it was just sort of like something to watch in the afternoons. As for Power Rangers, I remember the original series, but after that, it kind of just fell off, you know, for me. But I have watched a few, like, you know, retrospectives talking about production of like, this original series, some of those original ones since then, which are neat, but that doesn't help me on knowing about the entire series and stuff, too. Okay, that's my preference for this one. Anyway, this is basically stuff from the golden age of the show, a bunch of stat blocks of various characters, new character options and perks and stuff, and some pre-generated characters that you can do, and they give names that I'm like, I don't know these guys. Then, like, I just know, isn't there the ninja Snake Eyes? I think that's the only character I can like name off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure there's some other ones, and, you know, I'm not remembering their names for like.
13 original shows like Grand Slam, Short Fuse, Colonel Hawk.
I mean,
no idea.
Colonel Hawk, I assume, is named after the book here because it's Hawk's personal files. I think that's kind of interesting that they're like, hey, they're presenting it as like information that like this, I guess, major character that's probably one of a leader character like put together. That's kind of a neat idea. For like, you know, because it is like a weird paramilitary group that if you're doing a G.I. Joe game.
Yeah.
I assume, again, they tend to focus on the version of things for G.I. Joe that's the original 80s version. So, yeah. Again, this is coming out in November. Again, no offense to it, I think it would probably be neat to play in. I'm not the biggest fan, but it'd probably be interesting to do like a weird kind of semi-comical paramilitary group where you shoot colored lasers at an enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Seems fun. Just like, if someone would invite me to like a Transformers or a Power Rangers game, I guess Transformers I'm more of a fan of, but any of those I'd be like, sure. You invite me to a weird role-playing game, I'm probably going to say yes to it, at least trying it. Usually, if I've time. So just give me a good time. Yeah. It also gives an advanced role, which I don't know what that means. I guess that means, like, what would be a version of high level? Because they say old hand, a veteran character which can bail a team out of a firefight. Again, this is me not knowing the mechanics of their system. And if they have, like, a leveling / experience-based system. It might be, I wouldn't say similar to, but like that, like, you have the, like, veteran person in Star Trek, but I assume maybe you have to play the game to get that in the G.I. Joe game. I assume. But again, this is lack of information.
Yeah, you have different stats. Your stats are strength, speed, smarts, and social.
Okay. Pretty simple stats, but, classics. Always good.
And then you have a few skills under each. There does seem to be, there almost certainly is some kind of, oh yeah, there's a level stat, so there's a little spot for a level. So you do level up, so it seems to be a level-based stat, or level-based game. Okay,
cool. Just, if there's a level on there, if you can see the sheet, then that's good. That does confirm
my first, honestly, I've learned that in my studying of random RPGs, a good way to kind of get an initial grasp of a game is to look at their character sheet.
True. That's actually a really good question. Yeah, because it gives you, if there's any basic stats, kind of skill things there are, if they're specific or just a space for them, and also if there's a level to the system. Yeah, that's
and like
good questions.
Your skill level determines what dice you roll. So the higher your skill, the higher the dice. Meaning it's probably a beat a DC type game where it's all like, the harder the task, the higher the DC. So.
Gotcha. And the better you are, the better dice you have.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, I'm guessing that the old hand would be, because they call it advanced roll, I assume it's basically something you can do if you are higher level character or something like that. It might be like, a character option for higher level characters. Give you some extra special perks and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
There must be a way of doing it, with a level-based system, but I guess if you're interested in it, you can check it out. Cool on Renegade for continuing support of the systems. Again, they are interesting enough IPs that I believe they can hold a RPG, and more on them for doing doing a seemingly good job with them and keeping them up. I hear decent things about most of these RPGs. So, cool.
Yeah, the role, by the way, is like your class, so I don't know what it means by advanced role.
I assume what it would be is like kind of like maybe like a prestige class, or maybe something akin to 4th edition, where at certain levels you take a more advanced role or something.
That makes sense.
So it'd be like, oh, hey, this is our first one. If you reach 10th level, you can take on an advanced role now. This is the first one we're introducing. So it's kind of like, that might be at that point in time a little bit more of Epic 2, but they might introduce more of them later on. So, hey, your high level gameplay, or higher level.
Yeah.
We have a follow-up from our last discussion. I think it was last week we talked about it, or was the week before? I'm going to look here for this one. This is a update on TCGPlayer, and what was going on with the... let me paste this into chat. That's what did you do here? I'm right-clicking, and it's doing something weird here in Twitch chat. Thank you. I'm trying to just paste here. Anyway, there's an agreement between the union. Cool, good for them. People are still losing their jobs, but it's not as bad. Employees will receive 10 weeks of severance pay at $2.50 above their current hourly wages, 6 months of Cobra medical coverage, 7 months of continued mental health benefits, and a 1,250 ratification bonus for employees in the bargaining unit. So, big old bonuses. Basically, the union negotiated with their change there too. I don't know what this means for the union at the new place.
Well, no, the thing is, eBay doesn't have a union. That's the thing. And this is more like the union unit of the Communication Workers of America, which basically, as far as I'm aware, just basically just the union, I don't know, like, just sued them. Like, that's the thing. It just sued them for poor business practice. And they said, and then they eventually agreed to, like, pay the people, because they originally it was literally, we're moving, you have to, it's like, you get to move too, or else you're fired. And like, the idea was just that if you move, you get to keep your job, but like, that's impractical, and they only give them like a week notice or something like that. or like a month notice or something, which is ridiculously short.
It's kind of that thing of like, it's because the it's definitely it was a bid to basically kill the union. But with them suing this,
to stop one from forming with eBay, if I remember correctly, because eBay, I'm pretty sure, is not a unionized workforce.
I think eBay itself is not unionized, but TCGPlayer was unionized. And I believe from the previous article what we talked about.
Okay, they do have a union, and the union is the CWA, which I assume is the Communication Workers of America.
Yeah, that was the one that for the TCGPlayer union is the CWA. I'm just taking a look at all these like articles they did. We check on them to get different pieces of information because it's trying to remember from the other week too.
So they were trying to bust a trading card union.
Basically, it looks like it looks like eBay acquired TCGPlayer. And then TCGPlayer, then the TCGPlayer basically unionized in response to that. I guess the employees. And they've been kind of dealing with that. But then eBay was like, well, we're going to try to murder this union. We didn't really want you here. And so we're just going to move you and merge you with our headquarters. Which probably does twofold. We also don't have to pay as much money for having a secondary place over there. We can just pay for one, build it.
Okay, so they joined a union organization called the Communication Workers of America.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even like they just formed it. They made their own union organization. They joined an existing organization, which makes sense. Yeah. And that's why that organization sued them when they tried to do this.
Yeah. They joined a much larger union, which happens. But again, it is still the employees of TCGPlayer had to organize to do that. So it's just kind of like it was a mess. I don't know. I guess it depends on like how many employees move over. Depends on how much the union stays around in them. But I don't know. So it's again, who's moving from Syracuse to Louisville? Now, granted, they do have a statement in the one article from the who is it? And that said it. The union said the statement. From Syracuse to Louisiana, workers everywhere deserve rights, respect, and dignity of their job. The support from the TCG community has shown us, and we'll far without so it's like, hey, cool, we deserve that. So again, we'll see if this is something that it might be like we might not hear about in like any major articles. We'd have to look into it if like enough people will stay on at the company to keep the union in well supply, and then the question of like, are they going to hire more people in to TCGPlayer, or are they just going to more integrate it into stuff they have? Like, what's going to happen to TCGPlayer with this? Because great for the employees. I'm really glad that they got a good win here. That it sucks that they're losing their jobs still. But at least they got a win related to it. But what does this mean for TCGPlayer, who's running it, and all those kind of things? Especially if you're losing a bunch of employees. Are we going to be able to replace? What's going to happen? Or is this going to be another
Yeah.
kind of thing like Wizards, where they're going to hire on people that are just random weirdos that may or may not be able to help?
Interesting. So they formed the union in January 23. So
Yes,
it's been
I
around
believe,
for a while.
and because that's the thing is, I felt like they might have joined the union or organized their group joining the union in response to eBay buying them, because eBay bought them up in August of 2022. But they closed in the first quarter. But it was right around them, acquiring TCGPlayer that they unionized. I guess that was a way to basically, honestly, fight back against eBay. eBay bought out the company, for amount of money. But I guess the workers wanted to have some kind of we trusted the person in charge before, we don't trust you, eBay,
Yeah.
Which I don't know enough about eBay's business practices to say if that makes sense or not. So, yeah. Don't know about eBay.
I'm just trying to see. Yeah, don't. That was surprising.
Hello,
Yeah.
I have to redo our things.
Hi, sorry.
That's okay. It's fine. Take a second to do that. Okay.
Boy, howdy. Was it a time to say?
It was an adventure for you?
So I'll just go over real quick. So we had customers up until we're leaving time of 6:30. So I was like, well, crap, I'll have to cancel the showing up on this podcast. And then our power went out. So I had to very quickly get everything rushed into the walk-in coolers. Which I feel bad for whoever's in tomorrow, because there is a massive stack of dishes that we couldn't do because none of our equipment was working. So I don't know, guys. Power went out.
Sorry.
Not my problem. I'm off for 3 days.
Well, welcome.
Oh God.
You came in to us discussing how the TCGPlayer Union had a big win, though I don't know if they'll exist much anymore after the big win.
Yeah, that whole thing sucks.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons.
People lost their... They got some win for losing their jobs. That's good.
Yeah.
But they still lost their jobs. And
it sucks because of that. It sucks because TCGPlayer is how most stores price their cards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just sucks all around.
I don't know.
I mean, the whole thing about the TCGPlayer being how they price their cards probably won't change.
It depends on how if eBay keeps it around.
They will, because they're moving the headquarters to bust a union, not to get rid of it.
But that's keep
Otherwise,
it around
just
in
break it
quotations
apart.
too. And here's the thing too here's the thing also that I feel like I understand why the company unionized in response to eBay buying them, because the more I think about it, I'm like, is there kind of a little bit of conflict of interest of eBay owning the people that price cards?
A little bit.
I just thought about that. I'm like, that feels a little weird for them to own.
It sucks, and I also do generally make an effort not to buy from TCGPlayer. I tend to favor Card Kingdom a little more, personally. I find them to be a little more fairer priced.
Yeah. I haven't bought a lot of singles lately, so I don't know where to go.
I unfortunately have seen many Final Fantasy cards, and I'm like, man, I like that character. I should just buy that card to have it.
I'm thinking about doing that, but I'm also thinking about doing that in 6 months, where prices stabilize.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those prices are gonna collapse as soon as the set is actually out.
Yeah. Hey, which is this weekend, technically.
Yeah, and I think the Commander stuff already came out.
So, good luck to those people that have lost their jobs in the
Godspeed.
At least you got something out of it thanks to the union, and I guess we'll just see what's going to happen with it in the future. TCGPlayer. It's a mess.
It
Right.
is unfortunate.
Well, since you're here,
Hi.
you can take over for these two topics. One of them I was going to be able to do, sort of, but I don't know a lot about it. The Siege of Terra crap. From,
Okay,
Warhammer.
so Siege of Terra is the other lengthy book series they have. I think it's 16 books.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna be real, you only need to read the last 3, because those are the 3 important ones.
Okay.
But the one this was specifically about is, what was it called?
Era of Ruin?
Yeah, Era of Ruin is an anthology book about like the post Siege of Terra world.
Okay.
It came out a while ago, I think a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But they are re-releasing with like a special edition that looks really cool and nice.
Okay.
And I think Games Workshop has finally learned that every time they do one of these really nice books, mysteriously they sell out in like an hour. So they've saw that this one sold out in like an hour. We're like, okay, we're shutting the website down and probably canceling most of these orders.
They just realized scalpers are a thing?
Yeah.
God.
This is the first time I believe they've ever done something against scalpers.
So what company is this?
This is Games Workshop. Specifically, it's their Black Library division, which is the publishing company.
Yeah.
Got it. So okay. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, it truly is rough out here being a Warhammer book fan and wanting physical copies, because those physical copies vanish in like an instant, and then suddenly appear on eBay for several $100s mysteriously. If you want some of the Horus Heresy physical books, go for like over $5,000.
That's so ridiculous.
It sucks, but conveniently, Games Workshop always just sells cheap ebooks. So if you want to read them, you can just get a cheap ebook.
It's the thing that, like, I find it just so ridiculous, because, like, when you can just get, like, an ebook version of it, and you just don't spend that money. The money is so ridiculous.
And if you have an Audible, I always recommend using your credit to get a ebook or two, or like an audiobook, because the audiobooks are really highly produced from Games Workshop. But yeah, it sucks, because I wanted to, a couple years ago, they did the Eisenhorn trilogy, which is this sort of like detective inquisitor book series about a dude solving alien crimes and heresy crimes. And it's a really good series, and they released a like annotated illustrated edition that was only like $50. It was quite nice. They mass produced it. You cannot get that book for under like $200 now, because it was like bought up and scalped.
Oof. That's a deep and guttural. Oof.
Yeah, it is really rough, because unfortunately, some of Games Workshop's books are some of the best fiction for science fiction ever written. Right? They're some of the best sci-fi ever written, and they're really hard to find physical copies of them now.
I think that's kind of like one of those things that's just very sad about it. The fact that, like, you don't really get a lot of other good sci-fi writing nowadays.
Like truly, I always tell people this: if you just want like 3 of the best written sci-fi like military novels, just read the End and the Death trilogy. It's one of the maybe best written trilogies I've ever read.
Well, so hey, look, at least maybe they'll figure out something.
I hope so.
Something out, Anti-Scalper. It's sort of like,
yeah.
Unfortunately, nowadays I feel like it's becoming worse and worse with a lot of the scalping stuff.
I know.
It's just been like an epidemic on a lot of ends. We see it like, honestly, we've seen it like heavily in places with Magic cards for things like, you know, the Lord of the Rings set, and probably now the Final Fantasy set.
Yeah, it's becoming such a problem with Warhammer, because Warhammer has finally hit the mainstream appeal because of all the like the shows and games that have come out recently that are very good.
Yeah. Hey, apparently a law was passed in 2019 to make scalper bots illegal. So
nice.
not that changes things, but apparently I didn't realize our legislation actually did something interesting.
I mean, it doesn't
Or
really
good for-
stop them,
good for people.
unfortunately.
No, it doesn't. But still, it's good. It's
The
good
laws
that
are
it
on
exists,
record.
because if you catch someone who's scalping and they use a scalper bot, that's a crime.
Yeah.
So
It's unfortunate that a lot of these people do it outside of the U.S. as well.
almost
Yeah.
yeah. Like mostly what they do is they then run a server with a scalper bot in Russia, and then
Scalping is just like I just point and will be like, hey, you want to see the worst example of it? Look at this thing. I'm showing you Pokemon cards. Enjoy.
The clips I see of people like fighting children for Pokemon cards actually just disgust me.
It is.
I mean,
the worst example of it, but it's a bad example too.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, yeah. I mean, scalper bots are like scalpers and scalper bots are just bad because it basically makes it so you have to. I mean, imagine if you had to buy groceries off a drug dealer because, like, all the groceries are bought out. It's like that's basically what it does. It turns it into like a risk. Like you actually have to because that's the thing. How do you know the person is going to send you their product? How do you know?
Yeah.
Like, you now have to go to like illegitimate sources to try and get the thing you need.
I can take joy in knowing that the Final Fantasy set scalpers are going to get screwed because that set's going to be printed for 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, the best way to stop scalpers is to not buy off unofficial, not buy.
Yeah, I don't buy.
things.
I only buy through official channels or singles for card games now.
Yeah.
Yep. Try to aim for it like I buy it from like an actual seller or something. Too.
Yeah, because if scalping isn't profitable, it's gonna stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the problem is people want the thing and they're willing to pay out the nose for it, which is why scalpers exist.
Yeah.
God, this is just reminding me of the horrific monopoly that Ticketmaster has, and the fact that there are so many scalpers based around it because it's such a horrible monopoly.
I'm pretty sure that lawsuit's still ongoing.
And it creates this thing of where they're charging a lot and the scalpers are charging even more, and it's just it's so gross.
Also, actually, that is why the scalper bot was made illegal, is because of ticket sales, ticket scalping from that. So,
I guess that's what the fogies in charge can understand. Music ticket sales are going bad. People are taking them all. This makes sense. We should stop that. Well, if you're interested in these books, maybe Games Workshop can help you out at some point in the future.
I mean,
we
again,
live in
there
hope.
is. So, I mean, literally, it took me 2 seconds to ask how to stop scalping, and it said literally the best way to do it is just limit checkout to limit each customer to being able to only get 1 or 2 copies of something at a time.
I know the way some local game stores have been going about it recently. I think I mentioned it last time I was on the show. It's for the Final Fantasy set. They specifically put out a statement of, hey, if you buy it here, we are going to unseal it so you cannot resell it for high value.
I thought that was a good idea. The thing is
no, I agree. Buy it for yourself. Don't buy it to resell.
Yeah. If you're buying it to do, if you want the seal on it, the thing is, if you're going to the store physically, you're probably going to see them remove the seal, so you don't have to worry about that portion of it. But it's just sort of it's there in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah. I mean, you can still sell the singles,
True. If you really want to, you still can. Well, our final topic is the one that you also brought, Momo, and I'm glad you managed to show up in time for it.
Book. My book
Obojima.
finally showed up. Yeah,
Yes.
Obojima, Tales from the Tall Grass. It finally showed up. I've been waiting 2 years for this book because they had a lot of shipping delays this year as well because of gestures vaguely to the U.S.
We talked about that already today. We hit that up.
Yeah, pretty much. Super cool. But this is a very Studio Ghibli Legend of Zelda setting. Here, I can actually just post because I have a Dropbox links for the PDF for those who want to. Oh, okay. Cool. I don't remember how I share one of these. Oh, I clicked this probably the share link.
Hmm.
Alright, if you want to look at it, look along. It's a hefty book. I think it is bigger than the player's handbook for 5e. It's a big book.
Not pop up on screen. Back over to our videos. There we go. I opened the link. Neat. Cool.
It's the setting is like an island in the middle of the ocean. It's full of like these cool spirit dudes, and it's got all this like cool ancient 1980s technology from the first age.
Mm.
And a lot of it is based around like exploring the ocean for various kind of like ruiny things. It's got very like Miyazaki vibe, not the Dark Souls one.
Gotcha.
I forget what his name is. I for some reason only remember his son's name, who makes mediocre movies.
Oh, I feel bad for that guy.
Yeah, his movies aren't great. It's got some new spirit races in it. It's got spirit like background stuff. It's got a bunch of really like kind of funny items. Let me see if I can. It's also got like a lot of just new spells. It has an entire like 9 pages on just potions, which is more than 5e has. But some of the equipment. Where's the equipment? It's 157. Oh, that's too many numbers. Yeah, like you can get. It's got like items that are a bit silly, like some simple melee weapons, a boomerang, a butterfly staff, a frying pan, a tea kettle, a shovel, umbrella, things you would like kind of see in a lighthearted Ghibli movie kind of deal. Yeah. But some of the items are kind of like funny as soon as I can find them. There's a baseball bat that if someone misses you with a ranged spell attack, you can use your action just hit the spell back at them, which is just a cool item in my opinion. You have a Rubik's Cube which you can solve to cast a spell.
Cansecco bat, and it's got little it's got those little tags on it.
Yeah, it's such a cool item.
That's
There's just this like sensor that has 3 old men spirits that just argue with each other in it, and you can ask them a question.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot of like just really kind of funny items. It's got a keytar which you can do a performance to attempt to unlock a door with. So it's like kind of that kind of lightheartedness vibe, but it's also just kind of got like some just good items in here. Like there's a bow that lets you fire, basically like fire an arrow and split the damage between 2 targets, which I just think is a cool enchantment.
Cool. And this is base, and this is uses 5e rules, right?
This is a 5e setting, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, one of 3 books this company is going to do for this setting.
Okay, so you're gonna get some more books for them too.
And this like Kickstarter like did super well, so they're definitely raking it in.
Nice. Good for them.
I will say it is designed mainly for 2014 5e, not 2024 5e. So if you do use this for 2024 rules, you also do a little bit of work to make it a little more compatible with some of the subclasses.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Cool. So, very, very neat. Very, very neat. Sounds fun. So, I do remember we had kind of chatted about that one previously a little bit, when it was, I think, on Kickstarter.
Yeah,
we
it was like,
about it when it was on Kickstarter.
It's been a hot minute, and I'm glad it came. It's like a little bit bigger than a player's handbook, and like I like put my Tasha's and Xanathar's books next to it, and it's like taller than both of those combined. So it's a pretty big book.
That's good too.
I also got a poster with it that's quite large that I need to get a frame for.
Man, one day I'll put up posters again.
I have so many posters still in like the poster tube, so I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't want to go and buy a frame right now.
I don't have a great place to put posters, so I just kind of have things away. I put them in my closet. I think I have like an old calendar from 2008 and some ancient Magic the Card posters that were laminated. That's about the best I can say with that. That's all I have. I don't have really good wallpaper. You can see my ancient wallpaper back there. It has to be changed out one day too. List of things.
It's very like 70s.
Yeah.
So, I was gonna say 60s, but
I don't know. I don't know how long the wallpaper's been here. Ancient.
My room has the wood paneling every like person who did renovations in the mid 2000s has on their walls.
Ooh, okay.
So like, I get it.
the wainscoting, and it's called.
Yeah.
Alright, well, that's some very good news topics for this week. Thumbs up. Shall we dive into our deeper discussion topic?
Yeah, it's called wainscoting.
Which is understanding challenge in all its forms. This is a little thing I said because this is something I want to talk about because I gotta be honest. It goes bad if you don't. I think this is something I put on the list a while ago, but I thought about using it today because I'm harkening back to when we first started out playing 2nd edition Fall of Avonswell, where I didn't know about... I had problems with judging the CR and understanding how challenge worked in 2nd edition Pathfinder, which is bad.
To be fair, there was a bit of misleading information, which I remember talking to you about, like, long before 2nd edition, you ran that game, and it made sense that you had an issue when it came.
I forgot all about it. But that comes down to understanding, like, the challenge in combat, but it also understands the challenge of, like, hey, DCs, hey, when should I throw checks against players? This goes to anything that you challenge your players with. From riddles, to puzzles, to skill challenges, to monsters. When you understand what kind of challenges you should throw at your players, when it's good to throw at your players, these are good questions to ask, And I think that's kind of what I'm trying to draw back to that basic broad idea that your players will face challenges. People face challenges. And understanding when to throw a challenge at them, how difficult to make that challenge, and those things are very important to running your game. Like, am I going to throw this ultra-hard puzzle at my players? Why? Well, is this a good point to do it? Does it make sense? Is it logical the place they're having it? Can they solve it? It's the same for a combat. It's the same for anything.
Yeah, if you're going to talk about puzzles, that's almost a whole different discussion for how to determine difficulty in a puzzle. But
yeah, I'm kind of trying to keep it a little general for this one,
I know, but, because puzzles have their own, issues. Because that determines on what people know. Have people experienced this puzzle before? So those are just hard.
I think our discussion on puzzles has kind of existed at this point in time.
Yeah, we did talk about that already. That was 2-3 weeks ago we talked about puzzles.
A little bit. Some different types of puzzles. I've got some subgroups and stuff from our suggestions that I wanted to maybe dive deeper into, but we'll have to get those eventually.
Sorry, you go first.
Oh, I just wanted to bring it back to the whole difficulty thing, because in the book, in the GM book, they give simple DCs and DCs by level, and I think it's very misleading to use the simple DCs because it actually does make a big difference. An expert DC is 20. Well, at our level, at level 3, a level DC is 18, and that's far closer to being balanced. So if you base it around that 20, and then you make it hard, it goes up to, it can go up to 25, which is nearly, which is like you have to roll like a 1920 to get. Yeah. So like, and I remember you saying like, oh yeah, I just use the simple DCs because they're easier to remember, and I'm like, I'm not sure that's the best idea because we had like a talk about it a long time ago.
Again, if the simple DCs is the kind of same thing that happens with Pathfinder First Edition or D&D, where they set these numbers which are very simple. And I think this expands, again, through most challenges where you're trying to meet a number through a dice roll and stuff like that. I think that tends to be our average way that we challenge players, because it's a mechanical way to do it.
Yeah, the way I tend to do DCs, I only really have... The bulk of my first is obviously 5th edition, which has a pseudo-baked-in take 10 rule of you just passively do any skill, really. I try not to set a DC that is like above 15 unless it is like really difficult or it's going to get you something really like important information wise, because I've found that in 5th edition you often don't have enough like skills in a party to do a wide variety of skill checks, unlike say Pathfinder First Edition, where at a point will eventually come, no matter what, where it doesn't matter what you set that DC to, someone can never roll below that for any given skill in Pathfinder 1E eventually. Case in point, Cell's sailor character, who by the end of the game had like a 45 sailing skill.
It's one of those
I was gonna say Zardis and the 31.
Yeah, and that's like not
perception.
Even wasn't even a min-max character either.
No, it really wasn't.
That was just a normally built cleric.
Yep.
It was. It's sort of like, I can use an example from 3rd edition where, again, 3rd edition is very coded to Pathfinder First Edition.
Yeah, they're basically interchangeable.
I built a diplomacy character. And I really built a diplomacy character. I focused on it. At the end of the game, when we're like I think we were like level 15 or 16, I had plus 50 diplomacy. 50. It was an insane number. I focused that as my character, though, and I had like a lot of special bonuses I built into my character, and I was synergizing with another player that was giving me like another +5 bonus or something like that, you know? It was this combo of things, but it was an insane thing. And the thing is that's something you can't challenge stuff like that. That's the problem. If you try to challenge stuff like that, it hurts everybody else. So those are outliers.
Because now this one person has a now only has a 25% chance to succeed, and everyone else has a 0% chance to succeed.
Pretty much.
Or if you are being generous, a 5% chance if you're going for
that is why when I do my DCs, I tend to set them per character rather than like party. Because realistically, if I'm like, hey, there's a magical nonsense going on, party, roll me Arcana, and then like the barbarian rolls a 20 and the wizard rolls like also a 20. Hey, I'm sorry, barbarian, you didn't go to college. Like, you don't really understand magic the precise way a wizard does, so you're going to get different information.
Yeah.
Actually, I very much like doing that, giving the party different information depending on who rolled it.
That is a good way of like determining things and understanding that different players have different focuses when it comes to information. Because they would know different things. Like, the skills are the same, but just because the skills are the same doesn't mean that the two players...
A sorcerer is inherently going to have a different fundamental understanding of what magic is versus a wizard or a cleric.
Expanding beyond D20 systems with this, because this is an important thing, because we're talking again, like... I think we've kind of gone over, like, puzzle challenges. But again, these are related to this topic. And we've kind of talked about combats here and there. You know, we might circle back to it a little bit. But, like, skill-based challenges and understanding, like, even if it's not basically skill, but DC's difficulties, is a thing that you kind of, is sometimes hard to understand. And definitely pertaining it to the different players, understanding what they would know, even though they have those skills, is an important thing. This is recognizing your players and the characters they have. And this can apply to things like that have either success-based systems, things like more like Shadowrun or World of Darkness with their D10 systems, where certain number of successes matter too. Yeah, it's a different kind of role for it, but understanding where the difficulty should be in this is very important, and you're reading the system in a lot of ways too, because I have to know that this is not what the standard DC is. That's a good place to start out with. What the standard target is. Hey, Star Trek, that applies for 2D20 systems too, for knowing how much target they have to have for things. But then after that, understanding what is possible for your players, and also things also like degrees of success. These are things that you can make it that you can kind of mitigate making something a set challenge that is impossible for your characters to overcome. Because the point of your characters overcoming it is that is the point of the game. You set challenges for your players, they overcome it. It is important to part of it because it is then they're playing the game. If you just have everything happen, you're just talking with each other. You're not doing anything.
There is some fun in that kind of game, but you kind of have to go into it knowing that you're going to be playing that kind of game. So,
yeah, absolutely. I found that difficult things are also generally made better when there is a success on failure, but just like a different kind of success.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Failing
you can very easily mess up so badly in a dungeon that you have alerted everything, and you it's a slaughter to get through. But hey, you've technically still succeeded, but it was harder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna be realistic, literally one combat in a dungeon should alert everyone in the dungeon that someone is there and they should come rush.
Yeah, we all design our games like a Bethesda developer where the AI doesn't have ears.
I know, but I think that's good because there's a suspension of disbelief there. I actually think that's better designed to do it that way. Because I mean, you don't want to have a bajillion soldiers that you don't want to have 10 encounters that you had designed to be separate all put together, because then it's impossible.
I had that happen in the game. But this was the players basically, they did something smart, but then because they were in a base for people, not a normal dungeon, a base, they're we're just gonna go to the end of the base where there's the boss person.
That's kind of right.
They were smart. They used Arcane Eye to scout the entire thing out, which was an incredibly smart move. And I'm cool, you know where everything is. Rather than just surprising and eliminating all the guards and stuff, they went straight to the end thing, which was in a one-way area. And so then when things were going bad for the boss guy, they sounded an alarm, and things came rushing in from behind because it was an enemy base.
I think there is a really fun way to do that in, you conveniently do it, wink wink, when the boss dies. He lets out his final call, and then now you have wave-based combat. But in the moment, it's hard to think of that when your players have done a dumb thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's also the thing where sometimes players do a smart thing, but then they can't actually do a smart thing to actually get them out of the smart thing they did.
Yeah.
For example, barricading the door in some way. Yeah, it's one way, but you could probably buy yourself some time to set up something, and there are things you can do there, but it's just sometimes players don't think of that. It's they get themselves into a weird pinch because they tried to be clever.
Yeah, it's this interesting thing of we know where everything is, we know where we have to go, we can go just skip to there. That is the kind of thought pattern that can be that can work sometimes depending on where you're at and what kind of place they're facing against. But that kind of mindset can be bad too. It's sort of it's information is another part of this entire thing too, because the decisions before they hit a challenge and how they challenge things is based on player information. When I describe a room, it might give suggestions on ways to overcome some kind of, physical opportunity. It could be as simple as just climbing something, but maybe it's a difficult climb. So maybe, I happen to notice there was this over here where I can, maybe, throw up a grappling hook, and this would actually, hook on something, that would make it very easy, or I can tell, of these two, trees at the top of the cliff, this one looks like it's about to fall over, I shouldn't grapple onto that one, the other one looks stable. Again, this information they could gather. And, players do things to gather information, too, to make their decisions when they face these challenges. The amount that you give them should be appropriate to what they're doing, but again, it's that kind of give and take, too, of, there could be too much, too. So it's I don't know. It's a balancing act.
Yeah, and there's always the thing you can do as a GM, you can help them along, too. That's the thing. If your goal is to get them to climb a cliff, and one of them says, "Oh, I'm gonna grapple a rope to the tree," you can have them roll a nature check to see if the tree would hold it. And because you already know that the tree is hanging off the side and would fall if any weight's put on it. So you can ask them for that. Don't require your player to ask for more information. At the very least, ask them for a roll so that can get them thinking, because that's the thing, even if they fail the roll, they'll be like, okay, I mean, we could try it. Let's give it a tug first, though, just in case. They start to become weirdly cautious if you ask them for a roll and then you tell them nothing.
Yes, when you call for a roll, when you challenge your players, it instantly changes the tone of things.
Yep.
Basically, is what
Yeah.
it is. And that could be as simple. Yeah, that could be as simple as calling for a perception check, because that again, perception check is a form of challenge. Is you're basically saying, hey, does your character see stuff?
Something I have done when players are going through a dungeon, maybe a little bit stupidly and brashly, is I'll just pick up a couple of dice, roll them, say nothing, and immediately they instantly become more cautious.
Yep, that works very well in
go roll some dice. Go. Okay.
20 can do it as well if they hear the little boop and it's just nothing's there.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if it does that. Gives the boop if the GM rolls. I don't think it does.
I don't know how much it gives you.
So I guess what you have to do is just roll a d20 and be like, okay, you're no modifiers.
Yeah, my advantage is I don't really ever hide any of my rolls at roll 20 as a GM.
Okay. Yeah.
Unless it's an invisible creature.
Yeah. I think I agree. I tend to not for combat, although I will for things outside of combat.
For combat and dungeons, I tend to have everything open in public, even though obviously my players know I'm not going to cheat. But I think it helps them with decision making a little more.
Yeah. Social rolls, I usually hide rolls because
if a dude's lying, I'm not gonna have his deception check public because that'd just be that would just spoil it.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So we're on the same page then.
That comes down to information again, because this is not providing information to this is providing information to the player rather than the character. The dice roll is information for them to judge how they're going to address whatever they're doing, whatever challenge you set in front of them. And is that information you're providing them too much? Is it too little? It's that again, that question of presenting the situation and presenting the challenge they're facing. Again, in the combat, the puzzle, the skill that they have, skill challenge they have to roll. It's you present that, and you have to do it in a way, and it's all the detail. Devil's in the details. Once again, presenting things to them, providing them an appropriate challenge to what's going on, and also honestly speaking, having a backup when they f up. That's all that they do. Because inevitably, they will fail.
Yeah, and that does, in my opinion, having a backup when they screw up is very much something you learn to do better and better as you GM more. It's very hard to plan for let me rephrase that. It's impossible to plan for everything. So you can have ideas about how things might go wrong, but it's also very much you don't want to feel like you need to plan for everything. Just, a great way to do this is figure out what your players are thinking, like, before the set, like, in between the sessions, like, or at the end of the other session, like, hey, what are you guys thinking of doing next? So that way I can plan for it,
Yes. And, again, like, you don't necessarily have to plan everything out for a lot of these things. Like, you don't have to plan out, I'm going to throw a trap here. I'm going to throw an encounter here. It's good to have, like, a couple of encounters kind of planned out and know what kind of encounters you could have. Like, even if you're not, like, having major planning for your session, having, like, a list of, like, extra encounters or something like that, it's a session that you don't have to put together a lot of plans for. Just having some stuff. Like, again, like, it's that entire thing of, I had a whole bunch of, like, monster stats in Foundry, Fall of Avonswell, and, I had a general idea what was in most of these rooms. I didn't go into, like, depths about what was in these rooms. I had, like two paragraphs for me, and, like, I knew what creatures were, and that was about it. It took some planning, but it wasn't in-depth planning. I didn't go super in-depth in my planning for that dungeon. But I had enough that I knew that I could kind of work off of my ideas. And I could present things then based on basic DCs, and I knew what kind of things would be in there. I familiar myself, and I tried to familiarize myself with what the players could do. It's like you establish your knowledge base, and you work off of it a lot of times. I started at a point in time, and I moved to a different point in time, and I don't know what the first point in time is. My brain broke there in a minute.
These things happen.
Yeah, I think it's just important that whoever's running the game, how to basically throw something in front of your players that they're going to want to overcome too.
Yeah.
If they're walking a certain way and you're like, there's a cliff in the way, they're like, well, can we go around the cliff? And it's like, it doesn't really look like very easily. We should try to climb it. Or there's a chasm, or, you see some guys down the road, that look violent. You present this, they're not necessarily going to throw the challenge the same way, but if they have a creative idea, they are addressing the challenge differently and challenging in a different way. Maybe they want to stealth around those guys. Maybe they want to try to talk with them. This changes the dynamic of it from like combat, but they are still challenging what you are putting in front of them. You have made something they must face. Just be ready to, adapt your challenge to your players.
Yeah. So, here's... Oh, sorry. No, you finish.
I think I finished there. I was going to say something else, but my brain's kind of like half. But I'm trying to like also reach back into what I was originally started talking about before I went off on a different topic, and I'm like,
yeah, we kind of tangented a little bit, but I was gonna say, yeah, understanding combat difficulty is harder because you have to have a good idea about how the game works. Generally, the individual systems. With that said, most systems have a pretty good system, except for D&D, at determining the challenge of an encounter. D&D actually is very bad about that.
Yeah, one of the problems you run into with challenge and combat with 5e is the simple fact that the CR printed in the book is not the CR calculation Wizards uses.
Which is so dumb.
A lot of monsters are stronger or weaker than they actually are listed. The go-to example I always have is Wraiths have an instant kill ability, and they are marked as a CR5. They are not a CR5. They are a minimum of 6.
Yeah.
There are certainly directions you can choose with dangerous challenges. Combat being your top of the end dangerous challenge. But there are definitely other things that are just as dangerous that the players can face against. And the thing is, you have to be aware of what the failure state is, and be ready for your players to fail in a lot of ways. Granted, in a lot of times, it's hard for players to fail something. Like, I'm not gonna lie, you could send your players against a like CR half wolf, let's say, or something like that, and you're sending like 4 level 2 characters. Will they die to that wolf? Shouldn't, but if they do, that's just a chance of like existence, you're like, how the hell did this happen? But again, like, if I'm sending against a combat that's going to be more deadly, what is the end state for it? Like, I know, like, again, might have changed now, but a lot of those original encounters you were having with a lot of creatures in Fall of Avonswell, at least the humanoid-type creatures, they would have wanted to take you alive.
Yep.
They wouldn't want to kill you off. Because they have this entire thing of capturing people and doing horrible things to them.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, oh, you guys might be pretty powerful. You might survive some of these bad experiments, We lost a couple dudes, but that might be worth it, Bossman might like tough, hombres for his experiments.
And if you're going to run a dangerous game, remind your characters that running is an option. I mean, realistically, your players should run when they reach about 50% health. Like, if collectively their health is below 50%, that actually is when they should run. A lot of players wait until, like, 2 players are down, and they're like, now we can't run, So,
players
but that's something...
Is such a problem.
Because they don't recognize things are going bad till someone goes down. Which generally means it's too late to run.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to recognize when you are not successful at something. But combats are the strongest point in that. But there are other points in time where, like, it's hard for your players to know a failure state is impossible for some of these things.
Yeah.
Recognize.
But no, that is good advice. Always be aware of the failure state. I mean, like, in most modern RPGs, the difference between killing someone and knocking them out is literally just you saying, hey, I'm going to do this, do this instead. So, like, just remember that, they can knock you out. Or they can just stabilize you, they can just, tie you up and then heal you and then drag you off.
Yep. Again, doesn't apply for everything. Like, if you're having people face, like, some kind of, like, the bestial creature, it's probably not going to, like, take prisoners, but, it's rare that there's a big old beastie as a boss. Most of the time, most boss or important battles tend to be, things that are more intelligent. Intelligent creatures provide more of a challenge in most cases, They can think just as much as you can. Haha! Challenge is a thing that you have to basically... Again, the other side of the challenge point, I think, too, is you do have to put rewards to that challenge, too. Sometimes that reward can be as simple as, hey, you got through this, you got to the place you're going to. That tends to be just, like, a simple one, but it's there. But it could also be like, oh, hey, you found, like, a little gold on an enemy, you found, like, a potion... it could be, that a guy you're talking to and you're trying to, like, convince of something helps you out. That's the success, if they are successful. It's like, it's the, you carrot and stick, you whack them if they screw up, but you give them a little bit of something if they're successful, more than just, I rolled dice well. You have to present both sides of it. You have to present the failure state, you have to present the success state, and you have to make it that, they want to continue to challenge whatever's going on. Whether it's like, I get through these traps because there's something over there. I face these guys because, I get through a difficult thing. I climb this cliff because I get to the other side. You have to present it in a way that, they want to continue on the path you have presented.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I've rambled a bunch this day, I think. My brain broke a little bit today.
Basically making sure your players understand the consequences for their characters is important for them to make educated decisions. I
feel like I'm pointing this way on Discord, this way on stream. I have to be like, which way am I pointing? Which way?
Yeah. So, I think there's one more thing we do kind of need to talk about when it comes to understanding difficulty, and that is understanding the actual numbers, the statistics.
Yes, I guess that's important. Yeah.
Honestly, it's kind of complicated to understand how dice are going to work. There are some games that are basically like, it's a personal check. I consider this like I think Warhammer does this. Call of Cthulhu, basic role playing, those kind of ones, where it's like a D100 and you just roll, and if you get above your score, you succeed, or below your score, you succeed. Generally, they have things where the difficulty is modified. At least in Chaosium's stuff, they have it where it's modified based on like, okay, well, if it's a difficult check, then it's half of your score you have to get below, and then if it's a very difficult check, it's a quarter or something, or a fifth. Actually, it's fifth. You know, so, but basically it's your personal score that basically more or less determines the difficulty. Those you just have to look at your players' stats and go like, okay, well, what is your chance of succeeding on this? It's pretty straightforward. X%, you know, like, oh, they have 100, then they have 100%. They have a 10, they have a 10%. So that's kind of straightforward. But then you get into things like T20, where you really got to understand that for every point, or for every, you know, pip on the die, it's 5%. 20 is 100%. 1 is 5%. And you kind of got to understand that players, like, you generally, in my opinion, it's best to keep things between 75 and 25% chance of success. You know, if it's an easy check, 75. If it's a hard check, 25. But that said, you can make things harder given situations. But I'm saying, like, in general, when you set checks, you generally want to stick in that range. So, like, if a player has a +4, and you know they have a +4, and you kind of want to make it average, like a 50-50 chance of them succeeding, DC 14.
And this applies to many other systems, too. You kind of understand the basic, like, the basic number of things. Like, you know, with the D20, as you said, it's 5% per one, and they kind of get that area where you kind of figure out what the, like, what your people are adding to the bonus, kind of add that kind of like, oh, where is this? You can set the basic numbers to that. And the same works for a lot of other systems. Like, for standard dice roll systems, they tend to be like, where you, like, dice pool systems. They tend to be like, most of them tend to have a DC of like, if I'm rolling 5 dice, I'm going to have 1 success. You know, that's Shadowrun and World of Darkness both do that kind of thing. Like, they tell you, hey, according to dice and according to numbers, this is how it is. And so you know that if my person's rolling 10 dice, they should, on average, have 2 successes. Okay, cool. I understand that. And again, 10 dice is a lot, though. You know, for most skill-based systems, you know, that roll things like this, it really is.
Yeah.
But, you know, you get that number, you understand that number, you now know how to present challenges to them, and, you know, it's, the game can present you this information. You have to understand how dice work, though. Because it sort of does. Sort of.
Yeah, and what's hard is those ones where you roll multiple D10s or something, it's actually a bit more complicated for those, because they actually have a lot more swing in them, in a weird way, because of the fact that if you have 5 dice, your maximum is 5. You know, you could roll 5 successes. That's why, you know, World of Darkness has exceptional successes at 5 successes. I think. It depends on the system. I'm thinking Chronicles of Darkness, which is what I'm more familiar with. I forget how
they are very similar to each other with slight differences, so you are still in the general ballpark. That's all just to say about that.
Well, in Chronicles of Darkness, you get a success if you roll a 7 or higher.
That's some of them are a little higher or lower. There are some of them that I think are like 6s, and some of them are 8s.
Right, that's what it is. It's what's adjusted. That's how it works. Okay, now.
But 7's pretty standard for most.
Yeah, but
most of them.
World of Darkness adjusts the number, whereas Chronicles of Darkness tends to adjust the number of dice versus the number you have to hit on a dice.
World does.
So you get a pen. Yeah, I know. Anyway, but like, if you can get 5 successes, I mean, and then they have the exploding 10s, which technically adjust things into a positive, slightly higher, but ultimately, if you... Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah. When you really get down to it, though, you just need to understand the basic level of, 7 or higher, meaning out of every 10 dice, you get 3. You have 3 successes. So 10.
Rounding down, that average is 1 per 5.
Yeah.
Granted, the numbers aren't as bad in Shadowrun, but also I was having nightmares of early edition Shadowruns where they had exploding dice still, and then at some point in time they were like, this is stupid. We're just gonna have success at 4, 5s or 6s, and just be like, roll d6s, successes and 5 or 6s. But for a while, they just you needed 1 success and had exploding dice, and you had to roll a lot of d6s, and you rolled it so that you had to you could have DCs at 19, which means you had to explode
honestly
3 times to get it.
Yep. And yeah, so things can get complicated depending on the dice system, but I think we cover basically the most basic ones. There's X number of D, 6s or 10s, and then you've systems, 1d20 systems, and then you've got the
I guess
2d20 systems actually are also pretty straightforward because it's kind of the 1d20 system, but you're just counting successes, so it's like, what are the chances of rolling 1 success on 2 dice?
Yeah. And it also tends to be a
little bit more math, but
yeah, and it also tends to be that there are up systems and down systems, where it means sometimes you have to get a number or higher, other times you have to get a number or lower.
I will say for the most typical D20s, 20 systems, something you should remember is when making a creature, there is a 5% chance you will crit every time you roll.
Yeah, for a lot of those.
And you can most certainly kill someone with the crit in most systems, especially in lower levels. Lost Mind's actually very famous. The original introduction for 5e is very famous for the first dungeon killing players with crits because the boss is a CR2 Hobgoblin Man or whatever.
And his first round, he does an extra 2 dice of damage.
Yep. He's rough.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was going to joke there that, or you're me in Fall of Avonsol, where I keep critting a lot. I've rolled so many goddamn crits. I'm like, well...
Yeah.
Specifically against Joe.
You just hate Joe's character.
I don't try to murder his character, but his character just gives crit. And it's not like it's even it's just actual, I keep rolling 20s against him. It's not like it's even 10 higher. It's just I keep rolling 20s.
I was looking at Wrath and Glory. It's pretty much the same way as every dice pool system, but I did stumble upon their determining difficulties table. And the way they do it is they give a bunch of examples, and then you can take away difficulty or add difficulty. Pretty normal. But I do like how they've described some of the easy checks. The easy check, one of the examples is modifier of -2, so you take away 2 difficulty. Remembering the legal status of mutants in the Imperium. Opening a sealed rations tin. Convincing an ogre into charge of the battle.
It's just crazy.
And then you have near impossible, where you add +9. And the one example here is wrestling a dreadnought, which is a giant robot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh.
It's technically possible.
I guess it's you just run up to it, somehow, accidentally trip it or something like that. I haven't hit the one actuator that causes it to fall over, and you're like, yeah! Random dude did that!
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, so... and I think when it comes to challenge, there's also the option of just saying no. Players sometimes go oh, hey, if I throw this spear, can I get it through that one hole and hit the, and kill the, the mega boss through the, by throwing it through the arrow slit from 100 yards away? And it's you can just say no, Sometimes players like to get, especially for it's just...
the Wrath and Glory book also kind of goes the extra mile to basically just be hey, most things you or your players can do can actually just be done through role play without a test.
Yep.
A lot of rulebooks don't say that.
That comes down to when it is appropriate to challenge the players, and when it is appropriate to call for some kind of dice roll or rolling something, which is a form of challenge. Just sometimes you don't need it. And that's the thing you kind of have to kind of realize is when it's appropriate. Like, again, sometimes, like, you know, throwing out, like, oh, you need a dice check there, need a perception check. Mm-hmm. It's just, like, you know, break the tension sometimes, too, and keep
break
things
tension,
rolling.
Keep the players engaged, because players do like rolling dice.
Yep.
Kind of the point of why we play these games, part of it at least.
Roll the shiny dice and stuff.
Gotta roll the clackies.
Mm-hmm. Roll the number rocks.
Yep.
I need an excuse to roll my D100. 79. I don't know what that means, but I rolled it. Just an excuse to roll things.
It's either like good or bad, depending on. Oh.
Yeah. It's
okay.
Okay. It just comes down to
show off my weird little dice spinner that I bought. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where it is. It's like you it's a lot of work on your end. And there was one last thing I wanted to bring up. If you want to begin understanding dice rolls for your game system and the system that you're playing, after you've like read up on it, kind of an idea, when you play a bit, start it easy. Have a really easy challenge for your, like, you know, oh, this is like a level 0 challenge, you know, or, oh, this is all like, you know, have some like easy checks, you know, stuff like that. Kind of get a feel for it and get a feel for what your players can do. This is something that, like, you know, just seeing the numbers, understanding the dice sometimes doesn't always tell you. Have them roll.
It's better to start low and build up if you don't understand than to start high. All of happens well and build down.
What you should actually do, guys, is in your first combat, you should have 5 wargs show up and beat the party to death.
It was only 3, but also was beat your party to death. But yes, God. Look, you know, that's the thing is, you really do have to make sure you read up properly. Like, I thought I read everything, but I also, like, my brain did not register things properly.
Sorry, we've all been there. We've all done it before. There was a game where I was very new to DMing where I was like foolishly believed in Watsy's ability to put the proper serum. I was like, okay, this party can fight 2 wraiths in a hallway. No, player fucking died.
I will always remember someone, like, this is years ago, like a person I was doing a game with, just for briefly, they told me a story about them DMing, and this was a really interesting story. They're like, I was running this game, and in this game, this person, this story of, they basically had it that the beginning of the game, the adventure, the players were supposed to escape from I think it was like an iron golem. It's something that you like see, you know you can't fight. You're supposed to swim away.
This story always makes me sad.
Everybody drowned.
Yeah.
No one took off their armor because everybody was in heavy armor. No, I think one character survived because they were in armor that they could actually swim in. All the people that weren't in armor they could swim in, you know what they did? Stuck in their armor and drowned. Sometimes you just can't deal with it. You know? It's like you just can't deal with it.
Yeah. And I mean, there's also that thing where it's like, okay, you're running away. So even if you warned the players, hey, are you sure you want to go in your go into the water in your heavy armor? It's like, we're being chased, you know? What's the other option? So...
Yeah. I think the idea was like, you know, they could have said like, like afterwards, the thing is, oh, we could have cut our armor and just broke it, you know?
Yeah.
Like cut straps and stuff like that, so we just don't through. I don't know.
Oh, again, yeah, so...
Player, sometimes you also, both as the person running it and as your players, don't recognize something when a situation comes up. That just happens in life, you know? You know, hey, something's happening. Make a decision.
Yeah,
is it going to be the right one?
Get themselves into a really bad situation, you can try and help them out. I mean, sometimes it's as hard for you to figure out how to get them out of a situation it is for them to figure it out. So at that point, be like, okay, you're in your armor. Oh, what can you do? You guys could cut your armor if you're willing to destroy your armor, you know, and then you can give them options like that, you know. Now, you have to think of it, but at the same time, it's kind of like, sometimes you have to brainstorm with your players to get them out of a situation because they've gotten themselves in such a pickle.
It comes down to some previous discussions we've had of like, you probably don't want a total party wipe out, and even if you're going to have character death as a thing, you probably want the like character not to die to something completely stupid. Like, you know, it's like, as I said, it's like the group of level 2 characters versus level 0 thing killing someone. You're like, how's that happen? You know, it really shouldn't happen, and when it does, you're just like, what do I do about that? You're just supposed to fight this like simple thing for the sake of, you know, because it was there, you know. It's gonna dumbfound you, and you really don't want that happening. Like, against the big boss, okay, cool, yeah, he can kill people, awesome. Or even a mini boss, okay, cool. You know, something challenging. It makes sense.
Yeah, generally you want those deaths to happen at climactic moments. Final boss battles, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But honestly, I feel like as a GM, if they ever get themselves into such a pickle that they're going to die and it's not a climactic moment, you can always just basically be like, you can, as a GM, think of a way for them to get rid of an item, to trade an item for their life. I think that's kind of a fun thing that you can have in the back of your head, where it's like, you know, like the drowning thing. You can lose your armor and get away. Or, you know, maybe you can say, hey, if you, you know, use your sword to prop up the door that's closing to get your friends out, it'll destroy your sword, but they'll get out, you know? So you can sometimes have them trade an item for a success. It basically is what I'm saying.
Yeah. There are things you can do to figure out, and, you know, this is, again, that down to, like, safeguards. You want to build in safeguards for things like that. So figure it out. Alright, I think that's probably a good place. We kind of rambled on a little bit there, but it did revolve around the topic as hand. Because, again, I kind of wanted to take a step back to the... We've done some smaller bits of this. I want to take a step back to that larger topic of the entire all-encompassing thing, you know?
And I actually want to say one more thing about probability. If you're ever curious about figuring out probability, there's a website that I use occasionally called anydice.com. anydice.com. It's very nice for just, you can type in like, what is the probability of 2d20, and it will tell you. You know? So, I like that website. Kind of want to give that a boost.
Alright, well, why don't we go into our week in gaming? We'll have to go back home. But for now, I guess, why don't we start with, we had Joe's game, didn't we? On Sunday. Yes? No? Was it this week? Wait.
We did have it. Yes, you're right.
Sorry,
my brain. Yep. What I actually had to do is my brain had to think, wait, are we having it? When I finally thought, are we having it this week? My brain said no.
There was talks of delaying it, or some issues that were going on, and we still had it.
Well, it was my grandma's funeral, so that's why I was potentially going to be late.
Yeah. You had the grandmother's funeral. I had an incredibly busy day where I had to do a whole bunch of different things, including go to New Jersey. So it's like, I'm trying to remember, and I'm like, my day was so busy that day. I'm like trying to remember what all we did for Joe's game.
It was the dungeon crawl.
Oh, it was the dungeon! Now I remember it all. Thank you. I just needed that link of like the dungeon crawl. Yeah, I think it was a fun dungeon crawl. It was a weird kind of dungeon.
We literally saw a big room and said we're going the other way. Every time.
We did, like, as Joe said,
Joe was very annoyed about that.
We did, like, check out everything without actually, like, encountering a bunch of stuff. Hilarious.
Apparently, all of the hallways connected to hallways, so we didn't actually have to go into a room.
Nice.
Yep.
And it was very obvious that the rooms had big bads in them because of just kind of the riddle he gave us at the beginning, which was like, oh, you need these 4... Which the riddle was basically like... It basically was cryptically naming 4 items, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna need 4 items for monsters. Got it.
The standard adventure stuff. Oops.
Yeah. Joe... I think Joe does very good combats and encounters. I think he can definitely work on his narrative.
It's sort of like, the combats are fine, the encounters are fine, the overall dungeon and the narrative of the dungeon it's okay. It's a pretty simple one, that kind of thing.
It's like here's this ever shifting maze that is this place that nobody understands, and yet there are now people living in it. What?
Well, I think we did get warning that there was possibly like a Dao or whatever people
Yeah, but I was not expecting it just to be like, oh yeah, I have some minions who can actually point you in the right direction in this supposed maze. That it's ever shifting. It's like, what?
Did you do anything on Sunday, Momo?
Sunday? No, I don't believe I did.
I think you have games usually Monday, Tuesday.
I have games Monday, Tuesday. Monday, we ventured deeper into a horrible poison swamp of doom. And we met the last dragon on this continent, who is a little wee baby because his dear mom dragon got horrifically murdered by robot creatures from a crashed, basically alien spaceship.
Wow.
That we have to go into and probably blow up because it's causing a lot of problems.
That old chestnut.
Yeah, it's super rough right now in that world. Things ain't great.
Pleasant. How about your Tuesday game?
Tuesday was pretty good as well. We basically finished up everything we need to do to leave the plane we're on. We've assembled our Void Chimp, which is basically just a fancy planar gate that we can fly around in through the astral sea. It's basically a Spelljammer ship, kinda, but not with we don't have Spelljammer space.
Legally distinct Spelljammer ship.
Yeah, it's more like you go to the astral sea and then you bap to another plane, but you can just stay in the astral sea if you want for whatever reason. It's pretty awful. It's full of demons and horrible, awful things. So we're gonna be leaving the planet soon. I'm doing a character swap temporary one, because my character has to go off and handle some stuff. Cough, cough. I'm not having fun with the class I am, so I'm going to be rebuilding it off screen while I play a wizard.
Gotcha. Got personal things that will evolve and may perhaps reach.
My side quests kind of can't really be accomplished because it would require going to planes that Lighting hasn't written or dealt with, and I don't want to derail the game too much, so I'm just going to off screen all that. I'm playing a time wizard instead for a couple sessions.
Ooh. We had Fall of Athensfall on Wednesday. I think it went pretty well. We introduced a new character. Jesse was very good. It was very good add-in. His character is very interesting because the way he established it, he's like, I can kind of take stuff. I'm like, I threw him in jail to begin with, and he's like, nice. And then he got he basically got the thing of you can help these guys out or rot here, and he's like, fine, I'll help them out. And I really like that the team decided to just go straight back to the dungeon they just left because they want to get more information from it. I'm like, cool, great, I can just reuse that dungeon.
Y'all, you're gonna get that second chance to fight the goo boss.
They do have a boss.
To be fair, we did bypass the boss, so...
Yes,
y'all want that XP, optional. You gotta go back there and beat them up.
Look, whether or not it'll be the same boss as it was before, I haven't decided. It certainly would have been a difficult fight before. Probably easier fight now. But still would have might be fine. Maybe I'll just make it I think I might have put it the what are the two kind of weird template things they put on all the creatures? It's either elite or not, or weak or something.
Oh, yeah, I think it's weak and elite.
Yeah, I think I had it whatever it was a weak version of it. So maybe I'll just remove it. Maybe to make it not quite as difficult.
Or you can make it elite because we gained 2 levels, so you could actually bump it up from weak to elite.
It was supposed to be kind of more bossy. You might not need a boss now. Maybe it'll make it a little bit more difficult, but not super difficult. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But it would have been an interesting creature before. But I might still. I'll decide. I still haven't made that decision. But it was a fun kind of little post dungeon crawl, and I do like how the way you've presented things, and because you only got really only got part of the picture with the way you went about things. You've now induced mass paranoia, and I like it. I didn't expect mass paranoia.
Because Joe, right?
Yes.
Joe created mass paranoia by blabbing to the nurse person that, it's like, what happened to this person? Because we rescued a person, so Joe brought him to the hospital, basically, and the nurse was like, what happened to them? And he's like, it was attacked by goblins. And now everyone's like, there's goblins?
Yeah, so there's that paranoia. And on top of this entire thing of, like, people could just be replaced, there was the possibility of finding more information about that. And you've made it, I'm not going to say more of a problem than it was, but the way you've talked about it feels like more of a problem, like anybody could be replaced. It's like,
okay. I mean, we did clarify that later, that they require, like, things to do it.
Yes. You walked it back, but your first way sounded like, anybody could be an enemy at first, and I'm like, wow, you're really, like, pouring on the paranoia about this to start out with.
Look, well,
not that there isn't a bit of it. There's supposed to be a bit of it. But you ramped it up a couple levels, and I liked it.
Yeah. Step it back, so we only the part person. We didn't at least spread that there could be skinwalkers to everyone.
You pulled a Fallout New Vegas after going to Nipton and then going to tell that one NCR base. Yeah, this town got burned down by the Legion. You're all gonna die.
Oh god, it's Fallout 4 being like, that guy could totally be a synth.
Like, nothing in Fallout 4 matters.
No, it's kind of bad. But it's the same kind of paranoia. Anyway, was there any other tabletop? I didn't do any other major things.
I played a little bit of Magic one of these days. I don't remember what day it was.
I joined one of them.
You did join one of them. I don't remember all what happened, because memory is a fickle thing. But I did, like, make a really dumb, because I committed to just, like, I'm going to put every Hatsune Miku secret lair in a deck and see if it works. It does, but both games I played it, I didn't draw any mana because it's a 5-color deck. So I'm going to rebuild it as, like, a serious Bard deck, because there's a couple pretty good Bard characters you can play in Magic. Okay. Then I played a deck I made using the Abbott Selk card in the Final Fantasy set, which, like, is the flip card, which just lets you play stuff from your graveyard. And I had that guy that, like, lets you sack creatures in your graveyard to make, like, a 5/5 demon with menace and whatever. And I just made, like, 3 of him. It's kind of funny.
I have been actually considering doing some, like, random deck brews on Moxfield. Like, I was playing around with putting one of my decks in there, and I was thinking of, like, creating a commander version of it, but I was also thinking of just, like, choosing some weird creature type and making, like, commander deck based around that.
Yeah, I realized
like a bear deck!
I can never really, like, play competitive Magic, because every time I look at the, like, cards are like, oh, you get another turn. I'm just like, that doesn't feel fun for anyone.
Yeah, I like a lot of my older like legacy decks, but it's also like, I'm like, yeah, these are like a mixed bag of whether how player friendly they are.
I've definitely put decks in the shame pile to be disassembled because they're too strong before.
Really, I'm not gonna lie. I have a blue deck, which the entire focus of the blue deck is really just to draw out my entire deck and then put out Laboratory Maniac, honestly.
Yeah, back when Infector Poison was introduced, that's a bad mechanic that shouldn't exist. I did bad things to people with that mechanic that I am, like, not... I can't live past that, so I don't engage with that mechanic ever.
Yeah. It's been interesting because I have been, like, looking through a lot of the sets since I really, like...
I am deeply upset that the Final Fantasy set is the most, like, good the cards have been in a long time.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. The more I've been, like, looking through stuff, the more...
Like, these are just well-made cards.
it's just such a like thing of just seeing like the like well-made cards. I'm like going through like I'm like. It's not like there's like bad sets, but like just the other day I was looking through.
There's a couple
like,
decks that are like Aether Drift was kind of a stinker.
Yeah, I looked through like for like the other like yesterday I was looking through and I looked through like the Rivals of Ixalan and I'm like it's not a bad set, but it's not a great set either.
Like the Viking one?
That was fine.
That one was like kind of lame.
It was fine.
It had like lame theming and like they didn't have a lot of really good cards in my opinion.
No, I don't think it had great cards. I think it's just like it had some like there were some interesting ideas there. I just feel like it wasn't made well. Like I think that's what it was. Like I'm not talking about the Rivals of Ixalan. I thought their take on their gods was kind of interesting, where you had them and if they died, they flipped over to a land that could reactivate. I thought that was kind of a neat mechanic, and if you with something to do with the land, you could flip them back to the god side and get like a bonus. That was a neat take on like the god mechanic from that one. So that was like, that's kind of neat, And I think there've been some good things like that. And then I'm like reading up on some of these mechanics, and I'm like, these are weird mechanics.
Yeah, Duskmourn might be like one of the worst sets I've ever seen.
I just have gotten to 2024 looking for those decks, just those sets, and I'm like, I don't know.
Karlov Manor had really good mechanics, dumb theming. Outlaw, the Thunder Junction, great cards, don't like the theming. Bloomborough, love everything about it. Duskmourn, maybe the worst set I've ever seen.
I'm about to read Detective Hats. I don't know what to do.
It's not great. Hey, but we got Spider-Man to look forward to.
Spider-Man and Avatar, was it too?
Spider-Man and Avatar, yeah.
Great. Man. Anyway, did anybody do anything else tabletop related this week? Oh,
no,
I did a little tabletop sim. Oh, did you have something? Oh, you have Saturday. I almost forgot. Sorry. Yep. I did do some tabletop sim with Joe and Blaze. I think we did a little bit of Flux. Yeah, we did Flux. We chose some random Fluxes and played them. It was fine. Joe won every time, and it wasn't like an absolute win. It was just like he drew the correct card like 3 times in a row. We played 3 games. It was like I draw this card and play it, and I win automatically. It's like, well, shit. So it was like nothing you could do against it. There wasn't like crazy shenanigans going on. It was just like luck was on his side 3 times in a row. Anyway, Saturday. Today, earlier, you did something, Worm.
Yeah, so I did the Spelljammer Adventures in Arcane Space earlier today. It was the second half. If you remember last week, we ended off in the middle of a big combat. And it was a big combat. Basically took us a good chunk of the first half of this game to get finished. Yep. To be fair, it was the second half of last game and the first half of this game, so it was basically 1 game worth of combat. I rolled a bunch of 1s. I dropped my first off, enemies were too far away. So, actually, let me rephrase that. I kept rolling 10s on initiative. So you roll 1d10 plus a number, depending on what you're doing. And I kept rolling like 8s and 10s, meaning I kept going last, meaning everything was just changed by the time I got to it and I couldn't do anything. And that kept happening. And then basically final creature who was like this big creature that was glowing green with green flames and we didn't know what was going on. I go to attack it and I roll a 1 and I drop my sling. So it was one of those days for me in combat.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Then we went underground and then we found the entrance to the underground thing because we're on an undead planet trying to find the source of its evil emanations. And so we found a way underground, got ambushed in kind of the first little corridor. I ended up killing a skeleton. And yeah, that's basically where we left off, in the middle of that combat.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot happened. We found out there was a god that desecrated God's temple, that was used as a front for another thing.
Gotcha. All right. Well, sounds like it was an interesting week in gaming. I think we can kind of call it there. So, thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you, of course, to Worm and Momo for joining me. You will have a shout out here too, unless you're
Yeah.
adding in one in Momo today.
I got nothing.
I am DiamondWyrm. You can find me on twitch.tv/DiamondWyrm, at DiamondWyrm on Twitter and Blue Sky, and at DiamondWyrm9234 on YouTube. I should be streaming tomorrow, and next week I should be streaming on Saturday. Saturday morning, because the game isn't happening because Ald will be out of town.
It's like sometimes my cup is in the way if I'm trying to like type in things, and I'm like, especially for like where I've had my Twitch chat, so I'm like, I probably should just move my Twitch chat, but I wasn't, so I'm looking around the cup instead trying to type in. I don't make this thing.
I do that sometimes.
Like I should just do the easy thing. Should. Hi, myself, Dracovin. I'll be back on Tuesday. We'll be doing some more, honestly, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I've been having a good time with that game. It's fun, you know. It's not too difficult. It's just there. It's a Star Wars story. I gotta be honest, it's probably one of the better Star Wars stories told in the last while. I don't know. It's not great, but it's fine. It's a Star Wars story. It's pretty decent. You know, it's okay. I like it. It's fun. I like wandering around aimlessly and hitting things with a glowy stick, glowy sword. You know, it's fun. On that way. So I'll do more of that, and we'll get some tabletop next week. And make sure to check out all of that as well next Wednesdays at 8, and come join me, and maybe Worm, maybe Momo, whoever else can join, you know, next Saturday, discuss tabletop at 6. Check out my social media, and I say until next time, farewell.